Fox News alert now on some more primary results from last night. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez easily fending off a challenge from Marty Dolan. Meanwhile, out in Colorado, Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert emerging victorious. It's Boebert's first primary in her new district.
Trey Gowdy, host of Sunday Night in America, is with us. All right, let's talk about the Jamal Bowman loss. He, of course, pulled the fire alarm in Congress, had to plead guilty to that. Also, he voted against Joe Biden's infrastructure package, and the Democrats took notice of that. But then his rhetoric and actions since October 7th really rubbed his district the wrong way, and so he lost. Did he get what he deserved, Trey?
Well, I think what he proved is you can be an extremist, but you can't be an embarrassment. I mean, just listening to his clips, my thought is I hope you get some help. I mean, that's just not the rhetoric of a congressman, even an extremist. So you got the head of the Freedom Caucus who looks like he's going to lose in Virginia. You got one squad member who's already lost. I think Cori Bush is in trouble. This may be America's way of saying, you know what, we'll put up with a little bit of the fringe stuff, but not a lot of it. And when you combine extremism with embarrassment, then he's got a bright future, I guess, as a fire marshal or whoever tests fire alarms. I don't know what he's going to do next, but it won't be in Congress.
Well, maybe he'll go back to being a principal. I don't know who might have him. Trey, let me follow up on that a little bit here, because, look, right now on Capitol Hill, you know, as well as I do, that both parties are really eating themselves, primarying many candidates when they really should be just focusing on winning back the majority. Bob Good, the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, might be out as well. How much, though, does that really affect these caucuses, like the Squad or progressives, with Jamal Bowman being out? Because AOC, I mean, easily won her reelection, or her primary.
You know, honestly, if it weren't for Fox News, I don't think most of the country would know who Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is. I've never had one of her Democrat colleagues call me and say, you know what, I just need to find out where she is on this issue. I think they're entertainment. They're kind of Instagram, social media stars, and there are plenty of them on the right, too. So fame has become the ultimate political virtue. And as long as we're in that cycle, then you'll continue to see people like her or Matt Gaetz on the right. You may see a correction, though. It may be that people actually will take a little less excitement and a little more progress.
The other thing that we wanted to talk to you about, Trey, is that the judge in Manhattan on Tuesday, just yesterday, tweaked Donald Trump's gag order a bit to lessen it, make it a little bit easier for him to comment. What did you make of that decision 2 weeks before the sentencing?
Yeah, I mean, technically, Dana, a conviction is not final until you're sentenced, but the trial is over. So there's no reason to say you can't talk about the jury. I would advise President Trump, though, if you're going to talk about this, do what you've done in the past and say, look, this time it was me, but next time it can be you. So during the debate, he does not need to make this. He does not need to make himself the victim. He needs to say we need a justice system where no one is victimized. So I'm sure his advisors are telling him that. Make it about the audience and not about yourself. He's still got a little bit of a gag order, but this judge is not going to put him in prison, Dana. He may fine him again, but he's not going to put him in prison, because if he goes to Rikers, that really guarantees that he will win in November.
And, I mean, there's so much else to talk about, Trey. It's almost not even worth it, right? I mean, 90 minutes goes by really, really fast when you've got things like the economy and the border to talk about.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this debate format. I mean, we're picking the leader of the free world. I think, you know, a day. I'd love to hear the candidates question one another, but President Trump needs to be prepared, because, you know, Biden's going to say, I had a fix for the border, Langford had a bill, you nixed it. Donald Trump needs to look in the camera and say, not a single one of those children would still be alive even if that bill had passed. Not a single young mother out for a walk would still be alive if that bill had passed. That nursing student in Georgia would not still be alive. She would still be dead even if that bill had passed. So he needs to be prepared to respond, because Biden's going to blame all of the border mess on the failure of this, quote, bipartisan Senate deal.
Trey Gowdy with his finger on the pulse of what's going on. Can't wait to talk to you about it again tomorrow. Thank you, Trey.
Thanks, Trey.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.